And we think of them, even though not consciously, we kind of treat them as if they're like somewhat ours, as if they were somehow placed on this earth to benefit our life. But our kids are not ours, right? They are given to us, which I believe by God, and entrusted to us to help them become the happiest, healthiest humans that they can be and go on to fulfill their ultimate purpose in life. And they cannot do that without their health. It's Evie here. Welcome to EML Radio, where we are always talking truth. All of those things you need to hear that nobody else is willing to say. Hi guys, welcome back to EML Radio. Today we're going to talk about kids' nutrition. How and what to feed your kids so that you can give them the lifelong gift of health and optimal wellness. So, disclaimer, I am super passionate about this topic, and I hold parents accountable to doing what's right for their kids' health, and that involves teaching them what it means to eat healthy foods and to develop a lifelong positive, healthy relationship with food and a positive, healthy self-body image. So because of that passion, some of the stuff I'm going to say is probably going to get under your skin a little bit, but I want you just to remember that you don't have to agree with everything I say, but most importantly, be willing and open-minded to hear me out and not get defensive as a parent. Like every time I have to write one of these articles on kids' nutrition or now record podcasts on it, it's like, I'm like, oh geez, here we go again. Parents don't like to be told how to parent. And we oftentimes take it personally as some attack when we're called on the table about things. But just keep in mind, when you feel attacked, or if the things I say cause you to feel some sort of shame, keep in mind, that's your problem, not mine. Because I don't get up every single day and make it a point to go shame people. Quite opposite. I get up every day and educate people and inspire people so that you can let go of any kind of guilt and shame and just try to be a better human and try to be a better parent. So I'm not shaming you, but I am going to question you in hopes that you'll question yourself and start adjusting some of your priorities and making your kids' health a priority. Because look, the numbers don't lie. We have huge levels of obesity amongst kids, 45% amongst adults, right? So obviously we learn how to eat and how to relate to food when we're young. So we're dropping the ball. And I don't really have the number in front of me. I didn't look it up because it doesn't really matter about kids' obesity rates, because the deal is most of you listening are going to say, yeah, but my kid's not obese. So it's kind of irrelevant. So let's just start with a couple of different facts though. So the average American kid consumes upwards of 300 grams of sugar per day. Per day, guys. It's recommended that kids not consume more than 25 grams per day. It used to be 50, and then finally the American Heart Association got smarter and realized that like they were doubling the number of what really is a healthy level of sugar intake. So I know most of you listening are going to be like, well, wait a minute though, I don't feed my kid a whole lot of sugar. Well, I promise you do, and you don't even realize it. So where are all these sugars coming from? It is not candy and even sugary cereals, although that is a huge culprit, it's coming from areas in food that you think are otherwise healthy, that you've been sold from the food industry, right, that they are healthy. Well, I just want to give you a couple of, like, for instances in the average American kids, even lunch, what it looks like. So how many of you out there would say a good healthy lunch for your kid was maybe a piece of fruit, maybe a granola bar, a container of yogurt, and maybe like a string cheese? That's and probably some kind of either sports drink or a juice box, hopefully water, but we already know that that's not happening. Okay? I think that that's fair to say that's a pretty average American kid's lunch, and that's if they're even bringing their own lunch to school, okay? Which is a whole nother topic. So let me tell you, I won't even name the brand, but a really standard popular brand of yogurt contains 33 grams of sugar. 33 grams. So in one item, your kid has already consumed 8 grams more than the daily recommended allowance. Now, they're not just eating yogurt for lunch, so let's add the granola bar to that. The granola bar has 26 grams of sugar in it. So now, just in those 2 items, they are double in what their recommended daily allowance of sugar should be. And we haven't even gotten to, okay, how much sugar is in milk? There actually is sugar in milk. Look at your milk carton at home. So if you think that you're giving your kid milk for lunch and that's great, it's not. For one, your kid does not need to be drinking cow's milk. And it contains hidden sugars. So I just want you to realize there are so many sugars in packaged foods. And like, what are most kids eating? Packaged foods, right? They start their day with cereal and possibly a glass of juice, which is another 20 to 30 grams of sugar right there, easily just in the juice. And then they have probably anywhere from 50 to 70 grams at lunch. And now we haven't even talked about all the condiments and dipping sauces and all the kind of things that we get our kids to eat so that will kind of disguise healthy food for them. You know, ketchup alone has 5 grams of sugar per tablespoon. Tablespoon is not much, guys. I promise most of you have kids that are eating probably upwards of 4 to 6 tablespoons of ketchup at a sitting. So there's another 30 grams of sugar over their daily allowance just in that little squirt of ketchup that you're putting on their plate, trying to get them to eat. So I'll leave it up to you guys to actually become aware and start flipping those containers over and looking at the hidden sugars in the foods, the so-called healthy foods that you're feeding your kids. Okay? They are everywhere. The other kind of factual information I want to give to you guys is looking at the amount of dyes. FD&C red, number 40, the yellow, I think yellow is number 5. All of those dyes, just so you realize, are banned in most other countries. And in the US, major food manufacturers, again, quote unquote food, that's not food, but what we call food manufacturers are allowing these dyes to stay in our foods when they're producing the same foods in other countries without using the dye because they've been banned. So you need to be checking labels of your kids' foods for dyes as well. This one is a really, really big deal. And most parents have absolutely no idea the health implications and the behavioral implications of these dyes. So FD&C red, number 40, is highly correlated with hyperactivity or just a level of not being able to sit still. So just think about that. How many kids that we diagnose in this country as ADHD or hyperactive? Well, think about their diet. Do you expect your kid to be able to sit still if he or she is loaded full of artificial dyes and on average 30 grams of sugar per day? I would challenge all of you out there to consume 300 grams of sugar and eat a bunch of foods with dyes in it, and let me know how you feel. Let me know what kind of mental clarity you have, or if you have the ability to sit still. I promise you, you're gonna feel like you're jumping out of your skin. But that's what we're doing to our kids, and then kind of questioning like why they can't sit still. So those dyes, highly correlated with hyperactivity and all sorts of allergies. So allergies have just skyrocketed amongst young individuals from infants on. And a lot of it has to do with the foods that they're consuming. Another one is like skin issues, breakouts. I know like within our own household, if FD&C 40 ever kind of sneaks its way in, like in the form of like emergency used to have it in there, and we would take emergency and like my joints would just kill me. And for my daughter who's 13, her skin would break out. Well, we finally got smart and realized that it was that FD&C number 40 in emergency, right? So in something that we were taking that we thought was good for us. But to their credit, they have now removed that FD&C number 40 and they've replaced it with beet juice extract. So that's where they get the coloring from, which kudos to them. And all the food companies out there, like Otter Pops is another one that has taken the dyes. You have the dye-free options. And I can't really think of anybody else because honestly, we just don't really consume any packaged food. But anyway, there are ways to substitute those dyes. So the two major things I want you guys to take away and start paying close attention to is add up, just take one day to do it. And all of us have more time on our hands now, right? We're all kind of sheltering in place while this episode is being recorded. So take that time. I challenge you. Add up the food, add up all of the sugar in the foods that your kid is consuming on a daily basis. And you are going to be completely shocked. It is very, very challenging to get less than 26 grams of sugar. I promise. That's only, I think it's 6 teaspoons, guys. 6 teaspoons is nothing, right? But I want you to add up the grams of sugar that they're consuming in a day just to build awareness. And then look at every single package that you pull out of the pantry to feed your kids and look at the dyes that are in there. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and challenge you guys to think about where your priorities sit when it comes to your kids. So most of you know that my daughter passed away the day that she was born. That experience made me a completely different parent than I would have been had I not had the loss of my first child. I consider it the biggest blessing in my whole entire life. And I thank my daughter, Catherine, every day I wake up, which tomorrow would have been her 18th birthday. I thank her every day that I was allowed to be, that God chose me to be her mother so that I could learn these lessons. And I am far from the perfect parent, guys. Holy smokes, really far from it. But I gained a gift through the death of my daughter that I understand that kids are not ours. Right? So many of us, like get pregnant, adopt children, have children, and we think of them, even though not consciously, we kind of treat them as if they're like somewhat ours, as if they were somehow placed on this earth to benefit our life. Like, do they benefit our life? Well, of course they do. But our kids are not ours, right? They are given to us, which I believe by God, and entrusted to us to help them become the happiest, healthiest humans that they can be and go on to fulfill their ultimate purpose in life. And they cannot do that without their health. But for so many parents, the focus is on sports, right? Think about how much money and time most of you spend on getting your kids involved in some kind of sporting activity. What if you just simply spent a third of that time on educating them on good nutrition and how to create health for a lifetime? Think about that. Or even half the money that you spend on sports, or it's not just sports, it's other hobbies, right? Music lessons, dance lessons, all these activities, summer camps, all the things that we spend our time and resources and money on. But yet the comments I get from parents out there all the time is like, well, cooking meals at home is really hard and it takes a lot of time. Well, it takes more time than going through a drive-through. Yeah, that's for sure. But you don't seem to be short of time driving them to practice or driving them to dance lessons or to piano lessons. Where are your priorities? So I'd ask you, okay, when you envision your child moving away from home, becoming an adult, I want you to ask yourself, what will matter to them more as they move through their own independent life separate from you? Is it going to be all the baseball games or football games or soccer that you took them to? That, let's be real, like most of them, they're going to give that up as they move into adulthood and they've got some good memories from it. But is that going to be more important? Or do you think they might thank you more for giving them the gift of good health and giving them freedom from having a contentious relationship with food? So how many of you out there have a really healthy, positive self-body image? You don't have a contentious relationship with food. You have a mental grasp and mindset that food is really there as nourishment and fuel for your body. I can answer it for you guys. Not many. So do you want to perpetuate that for your kids? Or do you want to do something to change their experience so that they don't have to deal with the weight struggles that you do or the health struggles that you do? You do have an opportunity to make some changes for them. And the good news is, guys, it really isn't that hard. It's not as hard as you are making it in your mind. So I want to give you some, not just things to think about today, but also some really solid, tangible steps you can take to help turn things around for your kids' nutrition and to help you kind of ease into making those changes. Because let's face it, for those of you who really haven't focused on kids' nutrition since the time your kids were born, basically, there's going to be a little bit of a fight there because you're just going to change things and they're not going to be used to it. But it's really more about how you approach it and how you think about it, and they will follow suit. Your kids mimic you, whether you like it or not. That's somewhat scary, right, if we think about it. But if you have a positive, healthy mindset towards nutrition and you take that approach with your kids, I promise you it will not be long before they follow suit. So here's a couple of takeaways for you. One, the most important thing that you can do is empowering your kid with some choices. And that's really easy to do. You give them choices of food, and then the only responsibility that you have is just making sure that out of their 3 or 4 choices for that meal, every one of them is healthy. Pretty simple. In our, I created a couple of years ago, it's like a downloadable ebook that's called the Love, Learn, Lunchbox Guide. I give it away for free. It's on my website. I'll direct you there as soon as we're done here. But I created that in order to give a guide for parents, and it's really handy. It's got this little kind of tear away sheet that you can tear away and put on your refrigerator that helps give you kind of a buying guide so you know what to buy when you go to the store, And for your kids, it allows them to make choices between carbohydrates, fats, and proteins that empower them to make their own choices when it comes to food. Because we've all been there, right? With our kids when we're trying, especially if you've got teenagers, you're trying to tell them what to do, they resist it. But if you give them some choices and then allow them to make their own decision, that is when you get compliance, right? And then there's just not all this tension around food between the two of you. Okay? So number one, really set your mind around that this is really giving your kids choices and empowering them to make decisions for themselves, and then allow them to feel the difference within their own body on how they feel, what their energy like, whether or not they were moody, whether they felt sad. Encourage them to make that connection back to the food choices that they made. And congratulate them for making those good choices. Secondly, this is a super awesome tip, and it seems so simple, but man, I get feedback from people, and this is a game changer within people's homes. So in your pantry, delineate different shelves. Okay? So your lowest shelf is going to be items that are they don't have any added sugar in them. They're not full of dyes or any other crappy oils. And that is the shelf that your kid can choose freely from. They don't have to come and ask you if they can make that snack. They have the option just to go on that shelf and get it for themselves. Things on that shelf in my house are grass-fed beef jerky and grass-fed like turkey sticks and beef sticks. Okay? Another one on that shelf is Skinny Pop. Right? You're welcome, Skinny Pop. But that one's just actually a pretty clean snack. Right? And then also on that shelf are nuts, because that's one of those things, like, as long as your kids aren't allergic, that you can have free reign at those. The next shelf up would be something where you can have them, but in limited quantities. So for us, that's like cauliflower chips or the little sugar snap pea chips, because we don't really want to encourage eating chips all the time, but they're not completely off limits. And then in your highest shelf are the things that are treats, and they are meant for special occasions. Because treats is one of those areas that we really have kind of lost all reality in what a treat is. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, like, we got to go to Dairy Queen maybe once or twice a month. That's what a treat is. By definition, a treat is no longer a treat if it's something that you do every day. Just simply by definition. Treat means you do it rarely. Right? We had birthday cake when we went to birthday parties for a relative or for a friend. Those are the special occasions that treats should be reserved for. But I can't tell you how many of you gals, especially, that I see out there that are like going through the Starbucks drive-through every single morning, right? That's a treat. If you're doing it every single morning, it's no longer a treat. And you are showing your kids that you pretty much can eat or drink whatever you want on a daily basis. And they can't. You can't, and they can't. If they want to be healthy, happy, content, fulfilled, and really zestful adults, right? You can't do that. If you think you can eat whatever you want on a daily basis, or that your kids can eat what they want on a daily basis, like, there's going to be a time where they are going to struggle with their weight, and they are going to struggle with health issues. Okay? So treats are on rare occasion, once or twice a month. That's it. And put those on that top shelf. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there because the whole Starbucks and going through Starbucks to get, snacks and these drinks and, the sugary teas and all that after school or before school. And I see it. I drive my daughter to school every morning, and there's always just this line of people with their kids in the car going through that Starbucks drive-through. Makes me crazy. I'm like, the time will come where those people and their kids, unfortunately, are going to pay the price for that habit. Okay? Third step that you can do to help empower your kid to make healthy choices is make their foods as colorful as possible. So you guys know me, I pound the pavement on colors, not calories. And you use that exact same principle for your kids. Kids love to look at their plate, no matter how old they are, because we all are wired this way, whether you're a toddler or you're 50 years old. There's nothing better than looking down at a plate of really bright, colorful food, right? A lot of different textures, a lot of different flavors. And for kids, all you do, best way, especially for young kids, is to set those foods out. Right? Variety of flavors, variety of colors, and a variety of textures, right? Which is really simple, guys. It's baby carrots, maybe some celery, put some peanut butter on there, right? Put a little bit of cheese on there, put a little bit of like a healthy, cauliflower chip, put some hummus on there, put a couple of avocado slices and some berries, right? Add a little bit of rolled up turkey or a beef stick. There it is. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you put all of that out on a tray and you allow your kids to make the choices for themselves. I used to employ I used to employ a really fun program at the very end of our summer camps. I used to hold kids as summer camps for health and fitness camps. And the last day was totally focused on nutrition. And I did all of the things that I'm kind of helping you guys with today. First of all, I gave kids a little container, those little partition containers that have 2 or 3 different compartments in them. I gave kids that. And then I set out all the choices of food and I allowed them to put what they wanted in that container. It sounds so simple, but I'm not kidding you. The feedback from parents was like, my kid loved that. They were super excited that they could make their own choices. And the simple fact of having that little partition container, you guys can't believe it. Like that simple stuff makes kids it just makes feeding your kids good, healthy food so much easier. So think about that. How you present your food to your kids matters. Like, do you want to eat kind of a smashed up bologna or peanut butter sandwich that's smushed in a bag? Shit, no. I don't really see very many adults carrying around smashed, soggy sandwiches. But yet we think that we can do that for our kids? No, man, it's like a simple step. Buy little colorful containers and put their lunches in that. It's amazing just how a colorful, fun, compartmented container feels more like as if they're on the airplane, they're going on a trip, or it's just something a little bit different and exciting. So really think about the presentation of your kids' food. That'll go a long way. And then lastly, this is the biggest takeaway for you, is stop making food such a big deal. I'll go back to it. Kids follow your lead. So what happens is we typically go from, eat your vegetables when we're first starting to introduce new foods to our kids, right? Eat your vegetables and then you can have a treat. Well, right there, just through our language and our mindset, we have now demonized vegetables. So you taught your kids not to like vegetables. I'm telling you, you did. Now, are they going to like every vegetable? Well, no, because none of us like every single different food. But you are the one that was responsible for presenting foods to your kids in the way that is either favorable or that they will view them as negative. So stop talking about treats and that they can have one as soon as they consume a certain healthy food. Eat what's healthy and then you can have some sugar. Don't use sugar as a reward, ever, unless you want your child to grow up with a relationship with food that they feel like they reward their good behavior with food. You guys, most people out there that are struggling with being overweight or obesity or just yo-yo dieting throughout their whole life, it's because they have this negative relationship with food and they have used food for a lifetime as a reward. You're not a dog. Your kids aren't dogs. They don't reward themselves with sugar. But you have the responsibility to set the stage for that. And it all comes down to how you talk about and present food to your kids. So stop making such a big deal about it. Just lay the food out and don't talk about it any further. And to kind of finish that thought, you really have to incorporate some tough love here. Especially for those of you that have been feeding your kids a lot of sugar, or food has kind of been a free-for-all for them. Right? Unfortunately, you're just going to have to employ some tough love. And that tough love is, okay, there are 3 or 4 different options on your plate, but those are the options. You don't just get to say, I don't want any of that, and I want you to make me something separate. Now, I want you to know, like, final thoughts here. I grew up eating completely shitty food. I didn't know better, right? And so this isn't something that I just grew up with eating, clean, organic vegetables at every meal. Quite the opposite, you guys. I was the kid who was the baby of the family, and if I didn't like what was for dinner, I would say, I'm not eating that. I want a frozen Tony's pizza. Maybe that's part of the reason I'm so passionate about this, because I had health implications from it. And so I, in turn, didn't allow my daughter those choices. And of all the things that I've screwed up as a parent, I can promise you that her food and relationship with food is not one of them. And at 13 years old, she actually has full awareness about the way food makes her feel. That doesn't mean she's not going to struggle ever in her life with food, but at least she has an ingrained awareness about what food is used for, what it is not used for, it's not a reward, and most importantly, the way it makes her feel. So that when I'm not around, she has all the tools that she needs in order to make good choices for herself. Because here's the deal, your kids aren't going to be living with you forever. And the biggest gift you can give them is the education and the tools to have a healthy relationship with food. So, I'm going to leave you with this last truth. The truth is, most every parent out there was dedicated to making sure they either breastfed or used the best formula imaginable. Concerned yourself with what food should you introduce to an infant at what age. But I want to ask you, when did you stop giving a shit about what you fed your kids? When did you stop thinking that putting time and effort into giving your kids healthy nutrition, when did you stop caring about that? Because everybody is concerned about it with their brand new infants, but at some stage, that all just goes by the wayside. And we decide that all of a sudden, nutrition and what you feed your kids just isn't as important, or it's not a big enough priority to spend a lot of time on. I challenge you to think about that. When did you stop concerning yourself with feeding your kids the right foods? Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Hopefully you got some good takeaways out of this and some wake-up calls. If you would like that free resource that I was talking about a couple of minutes ago in the podcast about the Love Learn Lunchbox free download, go to evfats.com and the pop-up will come up there and you can just download it for free. It's a great resource. You'll enjoy it. It's not always free. We have it free going on right now while we're releasing this podcast. So make sure you take advantage of getting that download. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you next time.